Where has Aroldis Chapman been? I think it's a question that a lot of people have been asking themselves since he's been left open on the free agent market. Now, Aroldis Chapman has not been the Aroldis Chapman that we know and love, I guess, in baseball, and how good of a reliever he has been ever since that 2019 ALCS game versus the Astros. He gave up that bomb to Jose Altuve, which just resulted in his whole just implode of his career. But in the 2022 season, Aroldis Chapman just didn't have it in him, man. He just didn't have that dog in him. The Yankees moved on. They started using Michael King. They started using Clay Holmes, which seemed like an all-star closer until he kind of just, I think he had an injury or so in the second half, and he just didn't have his stuff, man. And then we had Ron Marinaccio, which was going back and forth between AAA because he had options when he should have been up closing games for the Yankees. But instead, we had someone like Aroldis Chapman come out and pitch. I think in the month of September and even August for a bit, he was doing okay, but then he had that patented injury where he somehow got a tattoo infection right before the playoffs. Now, I think Aroldis Chapman just had one of the craziest injuries of all time. I think we could all agree with that. The fact that he did not even show up before playoffs to even go to practice, he just knew he wasn't going to be on that playoff roster for the Yankees team. Now, besides that fact, Aroldis Chapman is an all-star closer when he's at his full potential. He's a dude that we knew when he first got into the scene he was going to be crazy. He was one of the only pitchers at the time when he first came up that could throw past 100 miles per hour. He even hit a record in his debut year. I mean, Aroldis Chapman was a dude that would be lights out. He was a guy that we all thought would get paid a ton of money if he stayed consistent, kind of like how Edwin Diaz did this year. Edwin Diaz got the bag because he performed really well in New York. Aroldis Chapman got that bag from New York at the time, which was a lot of money, but we thought in the future he would get a lot more just because of how impactful a all-star closer can be, and he would probably get the same amount that Edwin Diaz got now if Aroldis Chapman stayed Aroldis Chapman in his tenure with the Yankees. So before I get into the teams that Aroldis Chapman might show up on, just leave a like and subscribe on the video to be up to date with more MLB news and just MLB topic videos. Let's get into it. Today, I just want to talk about teams that might end up picking up Aroldis Chapman, and some teams have interest in Chapman because, hey, Aroldis Chapman can have a bounce back year with a different club or even a different pitching staff. Maybe he could get his stuff right once again. Now, I think one of the best teams for Aroldis Chapman to go to is the Dodgers. The Dodgers are notorious for picking up pitchers that have had a down year and somehow changing them into like all-stars. Look at Andrew Heaney, man. In the Yankees organization, Andrew Heaney was not good. That man was getting blown up left and right.
I know we're not surprised! Andrew Heaney!
But he goes to the Dodgers organization and he finds his groove again. He learns a bit more about what he could do better as a pitcher, and honestly, just a change of scenery helps a lot of people as well. Andrew Heaney is a prime example of what the Dodgers can do to Aroldis Chapman. I think Aroldis Chapman kind of needs it to an extent. He literally skipped out on practice for a playoff potential season for the Yankees. I mean, they were in the playoffs, right? He literally had a chance to go to the World Series, but for some reason, Aroldis Chapman just didn't want to go there because he knew he wasn't going to be on the team next year, and he probably knew he wasn't going to be on that playoff roster. So I think going to a team like the Dodgers, still being able to compete, still being able to prove himself as an all-star closer, he might go to the Dodgers on like a one-year contract. That's what I think Aroldis Chapman's going to do. He's going to go to any team that will give him a one-year contract so he can prove himself, and he goes to a team that is not a contender, maybe like the Athletic A's, because the A's could take a flyer on him, but I still think Aroldis Chapman thinks he's worth more than a contract with the A's, which is kind of weird to say, but the A's can be an option, man. The A's can pick him up. He can be a star closer. The A's can flip him at the deadline. If the A's even want to put in that money, maybe even the Pirates, man. The Pirates are up in the option, but I think, let me pipe down a little bit. I don't think the Pirates are going to spend enough money to get Aroldis Chapman. Let me pipe down. I'm a little too aggressive with my reaction and just like, talking about Chapman, but I think the A's is a possibility, but I still think the Dodgers are a really good choice for Aroldis Chapman, and I do think, however, another team that could be really interested in Chapman is the Cubs again. The Cubs have been taking flyers on people that just had an off season last year. You got Cody Bellinger, and you got a bunch of people that the Cubs have been picking up little by little. Eric Hosmer, by the way, they just signed. I think the Cubs could be a spot for Chapman to go back to because he was there in 2016. Now, was he amazing in 2016? People could debate that because he did end up blowing the opportunity in the 2016 World Series. Even though he ended up winning that game and helping the Cubs get to the World Series, he still had an opportunity to save the game out and he blew it. So, I mean, did he really help him? Not really. But I think the Cubs is an option just because the Cubs have been taking flyers on people like crazy. And if Aroldis Chapman doesn't work, you could just sell him at the deadline, or, matter of fact, just let him ride out the season and go from there. I guarantee if Chapman can't perform at any team he goes to and he takes a 1-year contract, he's going to make a lot less than he's probably projected to make. I assume you're probably going to be able to get Aroldis Chapman just because of his value and his namesake. You could probably get Chapman for around maybe 10 to 15. I think that's lowballing him to an extent. I think Chapman will still be an expensive closer, but because of his performance the last couple of seasons, I don't see him getting nowhere as near as people might want him to get or where he wants to get in value. But I still think Aroldis Chapman can show up on the Cubs. Now, another team I think might be interested in them is, in fact, the Padres. The Padres have had this weird obsession with bringing a crap ton of players, and for some reason, apparently on this podcast, I'll just say them right now, the Incline Pod, a Dodgers podcast, apparently the Dodgers and Padres are in on Aroldis Chapman. This was reported at 1:16 p.m. EST, January 5th, 2023. The Padres are getting Aroldis Chapman to be really funny, just because the Padres kind of have this team that can be a super team with all the stars on the roster. I think if the Padres added Aroldis Chapman and had an all-star closer alongside Josh Hader, I don't know, man, having Aroldis Chapman be your setup guy for Josh Hader is kind of crazy. 5 years ago, that would have been insane to think about. That's like an all-star caliber bullpen at that point. And on top of that, you guys still have some other bullpen pieces that are really good as well. I think the Padres would be a really interesting fit for Aroldis Chapman. And honestly, I think these are 3 teams or 4 teams, I kind of listed 4, that Aroldis Chapman might show up on in 2023. And whenever he does end up signing, I'll make a follow-up video and talk about why it's okay, and if it's bad, it's bad. I don't know, we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and yeah, have a great one, guys.